Very welcome under Europe Dome and our first talk in Amsterdam about citizen participation. We're with a small group and I want to make a small round first about what is citizen participation actually and why is it important or not important. Just some input from everyone.
Okay, fine.
Two things that's very important. First of all, we film everything.
Yes.
If you don't want to be filmed, let us know. Then we make sure you're not on the...
Mind. Okay.
Good. And the second thing is you have to talk into the microphone. It's not because it makes your voice louder, but because then we can hear you on the video properly.
Sure.
Okay.
I hold the mic also. Okay. The question was, why is participation important, or
Yeah, what is it?
what is it?
Citizen participation and why is it important or not important?
Well, we live in a democracy, and democracy comes from the word demos, meaning
Folk, people.
the people, exactly. Demos is people. So we have a political system which is about the people. So we're sitting here, we're walking around town. We are the most important people of the country. So it's actually a bit strange to talk about participation, because what do we participate in? I mean, we are the people. We should be in power. So when you talk about participation, you participate in something else. What do you think it is?
In the politics that is going on above our heads.
Exactly. I mean, I think that the word participation is used by politicians to involve citizens, which really is what it's all about. So that you see the word participation is about a different class of people, the politicians on the one hand, and the citizens on the other hand. And that's somehow a bit strange, because it should be normal to be involved in politics. I think that's and what we are now living in. That's a bit abnormal, that you have a different class of people which governs over us. We can vote for them. We can vote them out of power. In Europe, that's even more difficult, I think, because may I ask you? Do you have a government in Europe?
Yes, you would say so. We have a European Parliament for sure, and there's some other, like the European Commissioners, of course, and the Council things.
Talk in the mic.
The question here is, are we talking about a democratic government on a European level?
Well,
I mean, technically yes, because it's democratically elected, at least the parliament.
Yeah.
When it comes to the commission, of course, it's more like a decision made by the member states. Like each member state has one candidate that they send, and so it makes it like a bit more undemocratic. So
well,
yeah.
I didn't think about it for a long time until I'm a teacher in subject of geography. And geography teachers, they must know the world to teach about it, because you can't teach about it when you don't have knowledge about it. So one of the chapters in the book was about the European Union, and I had to talk to the kids, to the school kids, and explain how it works. And I didn't know it myself. I heard about the European Parliament. Okay, you can vote for it once every 5 years. I knew that.
Yeah.
But all the other organizations that are there, how does it work, and in what way is it democratic? So. Okay, we have a European Parliament, we vote for it, they are elected, but what happens then? And what is the government? And it is only by reading the newspapers that I found out how it works. And that's a bit strange, because you talk about the European Commission, but that's not really a government. They prepare policies, but a real government can be voted out of power by the Parliament.
Well, I would see it like as a bureaucratic, institution, because you also have it like on a national level, right? You have bureaucrats that organize like stuff. They're also not elected technically, so I mean, in a way they have too much power, I agree. Like the commission should be like more scrutinized by the population. It should have like more say, definitely, like the citizens should have a say about the candidates and so on. But in a sense, it represents the bureaucratic dimension. So, I don't know, like in many governments, the bureaucrats are not voted in by the population.
No,
so
that is true. But still, what is then the government of Europe? Because we have a parliament, but do we have a government? Who are they? What would you say if I asked you?
I mean, at the moment, we can't talk about one government. We're definitely not in a position to say that we are like a federation or like something like as a supranational state whatsoever. We're more like we're like more like a loose commitment of different states that sometimes meet in order to discuss policies, even though the parliament, of course, has also co-decision power and so on. So,
but you're from Germany.
Yeah.
So suppose that Germany was organized like Europe is organized, like the European Union is organized. That would mean that you have the Länder in Germany. Every part of the country is a federation, has a headman, a Landesmann is it called? Yeah. So suppose that the Landesmann of Bavaria and of North Rhine-Westphalia and of Hessen would come together, decide policies, return to their land, and then execute the policy. And then the Landesparlament, I think you also have parliament in each state, should vote on it. And that's a bit a strange way to govern a country, isn't it?
well, you always have under-representation, but for this, they will always decide for the sake of the country. For instance, just one anecdote. There's like 5 parliamentarians in the German government that come from Bremen. It's one of the smallest states in Germany. So they make, I don't know, maybe 0.5% of the whole parliament. But still, like the whole parliament decides also, like for the sake of this small state, you know. So you have the same on the European level. You have like a lot of small states that might be underrepresented, or like other bigger states that have more power. But I always think like that's my hope that they decide for the sake of all states like equally, even though there's not like a real balance. But
they always all say that they vote for the general interest and for the entire country, and maybe they feel that way, and that it's really an honest feeling of them that they do it that way. And many times it works. I think it works many times. But suppose that the people, and we talked, that's where we started out, that the people is what it's all about, democracy. That the people of Europe was unsatisfied on European policy. You can vote for parliament. Once every 5 years you tick a box. You know? Once every 5 years you go to your voting booth, you tick a box, and that's it.
that's not where it ends. That's like where we should debate, because citizen doesn't only mean you go vote, because you have different duties and rights.
Like
You can. There's like a petition system of the European Parliament. Nobody knows about it, but it could be quite efficient. It's about like how do you diffuse those information? You know, like because
So the ECI, the European Citizens Initiative, that's actually like, do you know the concept of Burgerinitiatief? We have
a
in
little
Netherlands. Yeah, so
tell me again.
So the idea is that if citizens want to have a certain policy implemented in parliament, they can start a Burgerinitiatief or a citizens initiative, and it means that as soon as you get in, how much is it in the European Parliament? In the European Parliament you need 1 million signatures from 7 different countries, and then you will get a hearing, I think, or that's maybe on national level, you get a hearing in the Parliament and they will discuss about it. They have to discuss about it.
Okay, but still, suppose you have a really big worry about something and you want to change something.
Yes.
You have to gather these 1 million signatures, it was?
If you, on European level, yes. On Dutch level, no.
Yeah, okay, that's a bit less probably.
Yeah, a lot less.
But still, it's a lot of work to do that. You have a job, you have to raise kids, you have many other things.
It also costs a lot of money.
That as well. So if you don't have money, if you don't know many people, it's really difficult. Ticking a box is still easy, but doing this initiative thing, it's difficult.
It's true, but nobody said that politics is easy. That's why we have to work for it. You know, like we have to work for a better Europe. I mean, I also disagree with a lot of hurdles that are like involved in this whole ECI. You know, like you need a lot of financial means, you need time, you need a network of people.
The ECI is the initiative, right? The European Citizens Initiative. Okay. Yeah.
And also the petition system. It's too unknown and it's also too loose. You know, like we need to implement some reforms that can actually change it to something like more like really robust, you know, like that is implemented also on the European level, like on a supranational level. And yeah, right now it's more like a loose agreement that doesn't really lead to anything. Of course, you have the possibility to get a hearing, to like also constitute a policy and so on, but it's rather difficult. So.
And how many times has it been used until now? Because I think maybe I signed only one time against a trade agreement or something like that.
CETA probably and CETA. Yeah. So there was, I think, 40 attempts to file a ECI, and 5 were successful.
And what means successful in this regard?
Well, that the policy was actually formed.
As many signatures.
Yeah, but.
Successful means that they actually got the 1 million signatures, and in the end.
What happened then?
co-decision making. I think there was like some agenda setting then in the parliament, as far as I know, for one initiative. For the others, I'm not sure, but they at least
They talk about it.
they debate about it. There's then a debate.
But was the decision changed?
based
The
on-
original decision.
I couldn't say yet. I couldn't like we would have to
because
check it.
that's what they wanted, I guess. That's why you have the million signatures to change something, and then I would like to know did it really change something, because that's what they wanted.
But do you think that there are other ways to, I don't know, be present as a citizen? Because of course you have initiatives, you have vote, like the elections, the general elections. Is there like another way?
Currently, I think it's not the case. And I started saying, but ticking a box once every 5 years. And you said that's the beginning. But what happens then is you have elected politicians in the parliament who cannot send away a government because there is no real government. There's only these heads of state who come together and split up again after a weekend. And then you can't vote them out of power. So that's not really democratic. I mean, it's very indirect. And the initiative is more direct. You can start by yourself. You can gather these 1 million people, signatures, which is a lot of work and it's difficult and people don't know about it. And even if you manage to gather it, then still, how can you change? If you don't have real power, you can only put something on the agenda. That's what you can do. I think this is at the heart of the problem. And it's not a European Union problem. It's a problem of every group of people which is larger than a family or 20 people, which is a company even, every organization, a local municipality, a region, a country like the Netherlands. It's the same problem in every country is, how do we really get democracy? And I thought about it a lot. I was a member of a political party for a time, and even within political parties, what you do, you have to have a lot of meetings if you want something done. You vote people for who govern the party, who make decisions on your behalf, and it didn't feel right because it's never the party always wants. Some things are very good because that's why you are a member of a party, but other things you say, this is really lousy, they have a bad policy. I cannot support that. So I changed voting for different parties, and now I can't even choose a party to vote for.
Yeah, I think it really starts with the community, and you're right that it's always hard to find like a common nominator, but in a way that what makes our democracy and our pluralistic society.
But you talk about our democracy, but the question, do you really think we have one?
Well,
and why do you think so?
I think we have one in the sense that we are free to speak out, that we're free to sit here without being interfered in our conversations and so on. Of course, there are, like, it's not absolute, like also democracy as we have it now, the representative democracy is not perfect, but yeah, we have to work for it, and I guess we need to be more active, because I see a lot of people that just go vote and then it stops there. But there are other things that you could do. You could also like interact with people. You can.
But again, you can.
You can interact with people. Like, just like talk about things, and then from there maybe form something like an idea, like initiatives whatsoever. But
yeah, can I add to that a little bit? Is that indeed what you're saying, that we really have this feeling in our democracy right now, like, okay, it's about the voting and then we have the power to vote these people in, and that's where it stops. But if we really want to have a democracy where people are in power, there also needs to be this certain culture in which people feel like they, first of all, can add something, but also that they kind of have to add something, that it's part of their rights and their duties as being a citizen, that they can, like, for example, a place like this that they can go to every week, I don't know, to discuss their problems, to discuss their worries. More direct democracy in that sense, more direct participation.
I think what's very important what you're saying is that you want to be able to speak out, not tick a box but use words, and to be listened to be heard. Exactly. I think that's essential.
I mean, we're already so alienated in this world, dominated by economics and so on, so we need to create a new public sphere, like as Habermas also said, like we need the people to interact in those spheres such that this one, it is like the essence of democracy, like that's where it starts. That's where it started in the Agora, back in the times of the Greek philosophers, even though, there were also like some like privileged citizens, of course.
Yes.
But like we're more diverse, we're more, I don't know, inclusive like as a society. So
Now it's getting really interesting because I'm curious. What do you know? I didn't know a lot about how it worked in Athens, in ancient Athens, and some other city-states, where it all started out, democracy. Could you tell me what you know about how you said you're privileged citizens? That's true, I think. I know that also. But how did it work?
well, they also had meetings where they discussed things like it was maybe similar to parliaments. It started like all in like a circle of people that discussed like the issues of the city and so on. Like, and then they eventually also formed like working groups, and I don't know. Of course, they were exclusive because women were not allowed, slaves were not allowed. So
Yeah.
and also maybe you can
Also,
add
an
to it.
important part is, I think, what I really remember still is that they had this thing that they were able to vote someone away who was getting into much power. Yeah, het schervengericht. I don't know how you say it in English.
I don't know
was
him.
out to
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, so if someone was getting too totalitarian, so to say, or too powerful, they could decide together to vote this person out of office, and this right to say no as well
So
to
to
someone.
keep the balance
That's
in a
not
way.
there anymore in our current democracy.
You said they came together to talk about stuff, which is true, which is happening also in Parliament right now. But in Parliament you get by being voted in. How did you get in a group in ancient Athens? How did you get in the group?
Well, probably because you had like some privileged knowledge, like you were a philosopher. Not
Oh, but that's not
necessarily.
democratic. That's not the people.
I didn't say that Athens was like the perfect democracy. It was more
No, no.
like an
But
aristocracy.
it was
or
the cradle of democracy. It's not. Nobody says it's perfect, but it was the cradle. It started out. So why was it democratic?
because
Wasn't it that they
was it
randomly
democratic?
selected people for the parliament?
was it drawing people in?
Yeah, I think
In a
it was
way.
like that.
Lots, losing lots,
Yeah.
drawing by lots. That was it. I never knew this, but they draw people actually by a lot,
Yeah.
by chance. It was just a lottery, and when you were drawn by a lot, then you could be in this meeting, talk with the others, and decide, not just advise, but even co-decide about the future of things. And they also used elections, but only for 1 in 10. 9 in 10 people were drawn by a lot, and that was democracy for thousands of years. That you draw people by a lot.
Actually, they want to recycle it. Like I've read like a lot of articles that they want to try this again. I think there's this citizens assemblies in Ireland, for instance, that go in a similar direction, but I'm not sure.
I always have one question with these kind of things, and I think you both would be very suitable to answer this question. So if you would actually have these parliaments by lot, who draws the lots?
Okay. Well, you said there was a lot of talk about it. I think I have the book here, which exactly is about it. It's against Gegenwahlen, against elections. I'll talk about it later. But your question was, who draws the lots, right? Okay. They had a system.
Because that's a big power in the end, to be able to.
Of course, it should be really random.
Yeah.
Could be arbitrary.
because otherwise it's dangerous. You know, someone draws the lots and he checks only his friends are for some reason are in there. Okay. They used to have like a lottery machine in ancient Greece. It is like of stone, and there's small cards you can stick into it. And they had used balls, and it's called a clariterion. And the clariterion they used for really random choosing lots. In Italy, there has also a system like Venice. Venice also used tradition like lottery, but only with rich families. But those families were in competition, so they didn't trust each other. They also used lottery, and then they used wooden balls. They're called ballot. That's what the word ballot comes from a wooden ball. And a boy from the street was taken randomly. He had to pick a ball like a football match, draw along by lot, you know, who goes against who, and that way they decide the name which is in the ball. He gets the power temporarily. So that's the way it's done.
Then the question is sortition also a possibility to overcome like the biases that we have like in parliament, for instance? Because I also like have the impression that it might also lead to conflicts in the long run, you know? Even though you have like a really diverse and like random assembly in a sense, but
There will always be conflict of interest. That's the human nature. We are different. We are rich and poor people. You have men and women. We have people with high and low education. We have farmers. We have people of the city. So all these differences will always be there. That's part of human nature, and that's fine. The question was, will we have conflicts? Sure we will. But look how it's working right now. If I have a political party, I want power. What do? I quarrel on television. You know? I want to be as much different as from all the others, and I want to say that party is completely wrong. It is stupid. I use rough language, because when I create a conflict, I get more viewers.
Yeah, of course it's about like attraction and also like that people see you like in the public. But I guess that, as you said, we probably need those conflicts in order to process, like we need antagonisms in our society. We need like not necessarily left and right, but we need different opinions in order to grow as what we are.
Yes.
Like right now. So
we need different opinions, and even we have them, even if we don't want them, we have different opinions. But the conflict as a process, I think it's not a very positive process to sort out problems, because now we have debates on television. See what happened in America with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It wasn't really a conversation about topics, about content. It was a battle to make the other one small. And that's what we call democracy right now.
But this was just like a fight for democracy, and you can't, like in the United States, for me it's not a democracy but an oligarchy, which is dominated by money and
exactly.
So this is, and even I don't know, it's a different topic.
But
and
look around. Check out the TV news every evening. What do you see? Problems with elections all over the place. Right now they have elections in India. It started yesterday in India, I think. They use 5 weeks to have national elections. Do you know why it's 5 weeks, not one day?
So they have so many people.
So many people. Like in China, they have even more people. They can do it in one day.
yeah, but
In China, there's no national elections, right?
Oh, they have elections, but they're only one party.
yeah, but then it's fake elections because
Sure,
it's
of
the
course
same
it's
like
fake.
North
It
Korea
is fake.
saying that they have 99.99% outcome
But
in
you
the
can do it
elections.
in one day. It's not a problem. It's too much people. And also, in America, there's about 300 million people, I think. Okay, in India it's a billion.
100 million in the United States didn't vote. 100 million people didn't go to the
Sure.
vote in the last election. So we have a big problem of how we want to be represented and what we
Agree
think about
totally.
politics.
And what you said about oligarchy, about the rich people being in power, I agree totally with you. But the thing in India, to return to India, is the real reason why they use 5 weeks of elections in India. Otherwise, in one day, they would have a civil war. Because there are so many problems in India. We look at it at one country. It's an assembly of people with different languages, with a lot of tensions, and in one day they wouldn't have control over it. So they replaced the order troops to keep everything under control. It's not a positive process. It's a conflict, and it's dangerous, And I think with these elections, look at Turkey, look at Venezuela, look at many African countries, elections there. People die in elections, and also after elections, because you already have a winner and you have a loser. And the winner gets everything, the loser gets nothing. And it's even in Europe. I'm not sure about, I think even in Germany, things are a bit unstable right now, and there's more parties. People are not member of political party anymore as much as used to be the case. People distrust government. All these negative things we see. I mean, about 50 years ago, more than that, people died on the streets of France for freedom from a dictator. That's what happened a long time ago. They died for our freedoms, freedom of speech, what you said in the beginning. But now we're dissatisfied, and I think that the system of elections is at the core of it. Because we don't have democracy, we don't have real democracy.
Yeah, because I guess that it has something to do with our own behavior and also our consciousness what politics means, because people just give the responsibility to someone else because they maybe fear that they could do something wrong, because they see that something so complex, it's about like the complexities that we are faced with, like let's say the technological process and like the changes that happen like in our daily life. So maybe they just fear to take action, so they just give this responsibility, then they keep the freedom, they say we have the freedom, and it's said like maybe it's just an illusion, but they say we give our responsibility, our political power to others that take like the conscious decisions and like I don't know, the best decisions that we can't reach. Maybe it has something to do with fear or like a lack of confidence. I don't know, because
I want to disagree a little bit with you. You said before that voting is not real democracy, or elections are not real democracy.
Exactly, yeah.
And I don't know if I completely agree, because I think how elections are doing now, that we vote for a person, is indeed not real democracy. I think you could say, because that's representative democracy. We literally vote someone in power to make decisions for us. But if we are able to vote for ideas instead of for people, I think that is real democracy. If people are able to... So if you have, for example, a referendum, and people are able to directly say, I mean, there's a lot of things to change and make better about referendums, but if people are able to say yes or no against a certain question that is direct, in that sense, I think that is democracy.
I get your point, but then we have a different problem. Look at the Brexit. It was a referendum. Are the people happy now? Okay.
It was a plebiscite. Like it was a plebiscite, so the question was framed by the government. It was more like that Cameron had to get his head out of the sling, like because he had this promise like before. So it was a referendum. Of course, they voted upon something, but it was a yes or no vote on a question that they didn't even understand what the question was about. I agree with you. Okay, of course, it was then the reaction of the population.
So even if you vote for ideas, the problem is many people don't get what it is about. It's difficult.
Yeah, I think this is a very thing, like we talked a lot about this, about referenda, and I have the feeling that referenda are often kind of misunderstood, because if we talk about referenda, we often point towards the ones that went wrong. So for example, in the Netherlands we had 2 referenda lately, and one was about the Krim in Ukraine, and the other one was about privacy law. Yeah. And you hear everyone talking about the one about Ukraine, because that one was a confusing one. Nobody actually knew what they were voting for. Like I tried to notice what it was about, and I didn't understand everything. But things like privacy laws, that was a really nice referendum. People actually voted. A lot of people knew what they were voting for, and it had a proper outcome that also was taken up by politics.
I agree. I'm not sure what happened with the outcome of the referendum. Do you know it?
Of the privacy law? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Of course, it's a raadgevend referendum. So it's
advising. Oh, not decision making.
Yeah. So, but at least like the privacy law didn't go through.
Really?
And we voted no. Yeah.
Okay. I also voted against that law, and I'm glad I could do that.
Exactly, that you have your voice heard on this one specific topic, and in that sense, if there's enough education about a certain topic, I mean, you also see it in Switzerland, you see it in the Irish referenda about gay marriage, equality of marriage.
Now it's getting really interesting.
And these kind of things, like there's a lot of referenda that we can point to that went well. If we only point at this one plebiscite in England where there was no proper information of people, it was actually a political game, it was just about...
Well, you talk about the Irish referendum about abortion and same-sex marriage, right? Okay. Yes. Do you know how these referenda came about? Who took the initiative?
Yeah, there were these citizens' assemblies, right?
Exactly. And how did you get into the assembly?
I think a random selection.
Exactly. There we have it. And that's the great thing, because first they randomly selected 99 citizens. They talked about, I think, 5 weekends on abortion and about same-sex marriage and about maybe some other topics as well. So they have time, they have a lot of time to inform themselves. There was even a truck driver who was also by lot selected by lot. They had time. They were informed by people who know more about it than they would do themselves. I'm not sure if they even were paid because it was on a weekend, but otherwise you could even pay people to skip work and to go talk about things. Only after that they reached an agreement in harmony, not by really fighting. There were differences of opinion, of course, but the majority said, hey, we should loosen up with abortion and we should have same-sex marriage. So there was a consensus more or less in this group. And then after that, Parliament decided, hey, it's a constitutional change, so we must have a referendum. And then I think, well, that's a more positive way to go about the referendum, because then the initiative is not by a government who has a certain interest, but it's by the people themselves who do it.
That's also what I would argue for, that in a sense, like, this is also a thing that in some countries, the citizens' initiatives we talked before, if you launch one and it's successful, there has to be a referendum about it. Yeah. And this is exactly the bottom-up part where laws come from the people themselves, and in the end we also have the power to vote yes or no against it.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of both then.
Exactly. And I think in this regard, like, power should circulate, because if it circulates, then you don't have like the danger that it goes like
Agree
somewhere
totally with you.
in the higher positions of people that just acquire power in order to gain like access to money or like other things. We need like the micro just gives like connection to the camera.
It works.
It works.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So circulating power, that would be something that we would strive for, and it actually happens through those citizens' assemblies, or like through like the luck to get into those positions through drawings.
Yeah, drawing by lot.
Exactly. I had some other idea, but I have to think about it because
There's one more thing about these referenda. If you do them, a big problem is always how do you inform the people in general? Because the group who is drawn by lot, like in Ireland, they are informed because they have weekends and weekends to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But the people who vote in this referendum, how do they get their information? That's my problem also with the Crimea referendum you talked about, and on Ukraine. I didn't understand it really. I think I voted against, but I was a bit. I think I was a bit insecure about which way to go. But there's one other thing, because you can use partition also, so drawing by lot, to prepare the information. Because then it's not the government who prepares the information, the leaflets, but it's the people drawn by lot who comment on the government information, who make it better, so that everyone understands it better and trusts it more. So you can even use sortition, drawing by lot, to inform the people before a referendum.
that's how it should be. Like we should avoid this institutional bias or even this media bias, because if they portray like one topic before an election or something, then there's always like different opinions, like the conservative one, the more progressive one, and this could lead to like a confusion of the one that takes the decisions, us. So we need, as you say, like a more neutral way to diffuse information, and the whole process needs to be like on a really objective basis. But then it's a question, what is objectivity, like what is objective? Yeah, in a way there's always like some bias, you know, like you can't avoid the bias. So
but that's maybe also human, that there will always be some bias in the end. But this is the thing I wanted to ask. So I think I asked it in the beginning, but we didn't answer it. Who draws the lots in the end? Who gets that power?
Okay, that's a good question. I haven't given it really much thought, because even if you have a computer to do it, why would you trust the computer, you know? The algorithm, exactly. That's a bit there. You can have open source, but still I think I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, we program it in the end, like even the machine is kind of...
But who checks the program, you know? Is it Chinese hardware maybe? There you go. So, but already we use lottery right now to have money prizes. You can gain 1 million. And what do we do then? We have it on television, we have these balls going around, numbers of 1 to 99, 0 to 99. And that way you can have random numbers. These numbers you can reference to security numbers, the BSN number in the Netherlands. Every citizen has his own number, and then you can use that to draw lots.
Do you think that's possible in the European Union, where we have 500 million balls then?
No. You only need 10 balls, because there's 0 to 9, you know? And then you do it over and over again. You understand? You need a 6-digit number or an 8-digit number.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Clear. Yeah.
So it becomes like a normal lottery.
It becomes like a normal lottery. I wouldn't know of any other way.
This is probably the fairest, because what you always can trust on is like what the lottery brings you, know, like every Friday there's going to be the numbers. It's like a tautology, you know, like it's the only thing that has like the most objective thing, like meaning in life in a way, you know, and maybe even like linked to elections and to other like decision making.
One thing I still would like to add, and I don't know if there's I would still like to add it. I have the feeling that as we're talking about this now, about drawing by lot, we kind of assume that randomness also implies diversity, but it doesn't have to be, of course. Because even if you draw by lot, random selection means everyone can get in. So it might also be that a lot of people from the same part of opinion get in. In that sense, it's not representing everyone.
But if you have a random, so suppose you have, in our country, the Netherlands have 17 million people. You randomly do 100 people from that. You don't have 100 women then, or 100 men. You have about 50, maybe 51 or 52 men, or 48 women, or the other way around. It's kind of improbable that you would have much more women than men. Isn't that the case? That's random.
It's improbable, but it's not guaranteed. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's true. It's not guaranteed. But the great thing is, I'm gonna show it on camera now. I'm not a stakeholder of this book. I'm not the writer of it. I don't make money. I give it away for free sometimes. But the thing is, what was the question again? Oh yeah, and there's no guarantee. I never knew this, but there's a guy. He's got an American guy. He's called Mr. Terrell Boricius, and he has worked out in a system which is completely without elections. It doesn't exist anywhere, of course, yet. It's only with lottery. But what you do is you don't have you have a parliament and you do once every 4 years. You select people by a lot. That's not the way it goes. Right now, in many democracies, you have different chambers. Like you have a House of Representatives and you have a Senate. I think it's the same in Germany. You have a Landeskammer, I think it's called, and a Bundestag. The thing is, you need one group to set the agenda. You need another group to decide on certain topics. You can have another group of selected, drawn by lot people, who check the lottery system. This guy Boricius, it's in the book. I'm not sure which page it is, but he made a little drawing about it. You have about 6 different chambers of people. Maybe I think it's here on the next page, maybe, who keep the balance of drawing by lot. So if you have only one group, you're exactly right. Then it would be dangerous. No, I think it's the next page. Next page. Maybe there it is. It's called. Maybe I'll look it up later. The interesting thing is, suppose you have a really skewed selection of people who is not really representative. They make a decision many people don't like. That you wouldn't want, it's not democratic. The great thing is, you have these agenda-setting other group of people sortitioned by lot. They can say, we don't like it, we want to draw a new group of people, and we're going to start all over the process. So you can repair it very quickly. Right now, you have to wait 4 years to have the next elections. Then you're not sure what they're going to do afterwards. Then you can really do it fast.
But I mean, that's how democracy works in these days. You have winners and losers, and then you have the next time, like the next elections, the time to get re-elected. I mean, 4 years. It's quite a long time to put it.
For a wrong decision.
Yeah.
But that's also what we're talking about. How to repair or make it better, or how to.
Well, through actions, through civil actions. that you need to be visible. If you're unsatisfied, then you go against this institution, not through, I don't know, through a revolution or something, but you can protest, you can manifest, you have different means. You can even go on a Twitter rage or something, You
can do it, but it doesn't make any people happy to go and protest. You do it because you are powerless, not because you have power. I found it here in the book, by the way. It's called multi-body sortition. So you have all these different chambers with different functions, and they keep each other in check, in balance. They balance each other out. So even if you have one group, which, like you said, that's my worry, and you're right, you could have that maybe sometimes. Then there are the other groups who keep it in balance, like the power in many countries is divided up between different groups of people. You have the same thing.
This is the initial idea of Trias Politica. No?
Exactly.
So
yeah,
you would add something to it.
It
wouldn't
exactly
be like a Trias Politica, but something that has a supplement that is more from the ground, like the bottom-up idea. Yeah, that could be implemented in it.
Just out of interest, with this random selection, would you also argue that that's necessary in the judicial system?
Oh, actually, like they have in America, for instance, the jury. Even higher up. Well, in America they have a jury. They have already random selection right now to make jury decisions. We don't have it in the Netherlands. I don't think they also have it in Germany.
No.
That's the only thing that survived 2 centuries ago when they talked about are we going to have elections or do we have sortition? that is the only part that survived. It is 2 centuries old, so they used it. They used tradition in the legal system, but not in a political system. Your question was, should we have it in the legal system? I don't know many things about laws and legal stuff. So I couldn't decide. I want to be informed first. I want to be informed. I want judges to talk to me. I want lawyers to talk to me and advise me in what to choose. Because how can I make a decision if I don't know anything about it?
Yeah, that's why you should probably simplify like the legal dimension of politics. But then on the other hand, I'm like questioning it because maybe there are so many complexities that we don't understand as like liar. How do you say it? Like someone who has no knowledge at all, like non-expert.
Layperson.
Yeah. So maybe we are already in such a dynamic, like an interconnected world with so many like processes that we can't stop or that we can't control, and maybe like even in politics, the citizen doesn't always have the right to say like or like to change something.
Well,
he doesn't know better,
it's a good point. When I talk about people about tradition, their first worry is, but then we get a lot of people who have a low education, who don't know anything about the subject they kind of decide on, international trade or something, or environmental law. They don't know anything that much. They are plumbers, they are truck drivers. How can they know? That's a bit the worry, right?
Yeah.
This was my worry too before I read this book. I'm not worried about it now, because the writer says, and not only he, it's also the scientists.
There's scientists for future, like they support the Fridays for Future kids, and they're like another coalition, and they come from different fields like physics, chemistry, biology. So,
but just to return to the point, when they are drawn by a lot, they start out not knowing a lot. That's true. Few people know about it, but during the process they get informed and they are able to make decisions on an informed basis. Right now they're in the voting booth and know nothing and can vote for referenda or just regular elections. So that's already happening. If you give people time and information and let them talk together, give them power, then you get a whole different dynamics. That's the great thing.
So one thing I'm not on board on completely with the traditioning thing is that there also needs to be a certain will under the people to do this, because if you select people by tradition and people are not willing to do this and they're willing to opt out, for example, then it's already less random, of course, because certain people will opt out more often and blah blah. So then there shouldn't be the option to opt out, but then these people who are actually in these groups also need to have this motivation and the will and the I have the feeling that we need this is going to sound a little vague, but we need a kind of a culture that is like fostering this and stimulating people to actually do more of these things. Also in the society we have now, to like make people go on the streets for demonstrations, to let people know about the ECI, let them know how important or not important it is. And this culture of people actually being participatory kind of first has to be there, I have the feeling, before something like this could work.
I agree totally. It's my main worry as well. If I had to be critical about tradition, that would be my biggest point. Still, I'm positive, because right now when they do tradition, I think maybe 5% of the people respond. That's much too low. You need 100%. That you're never going to get that 100%. But I think we can have the culture can change slowly, and the way you do it first is, if you really draw people by a lot, you don't let them only advise, you give them power as well for decision making. Because why would you show up? Not only that, you give them time and money for the work they do. Because would you think there's any people who was elected who would show up in the parliament if they wouldn't get a salary for it? I mean, they are paid for 4 years and paid very well. So you have to do the same thing. People sacrificing their time, the citizens drawn by a lot.
You need an incentive. You need
of course, and why not?
Who gives he gives you a reward system that work that you get some benefit. Yeah, for sure you need this, because otherwise there will be motivational problems.
Exactly, and you get your job back afterwards. Of course, you don't lose your job, because maybe it's full time if you get in parliament for a year, like in the Senate for something for an entire year. You can't afford to lose your job. Still, then maybe you have to raise kids, or you have to take care of your grandmother, and it's difficult to show up. But the culture thing you said, why would you show up? The people don't know about it. Why would I do it? Why would I do it? Well, I think if you win a lottery for real for money, you don't have the problem of give me the money, give me the prize. I won the lottery. So I think right now many people feel privileged if they are selected by a lot, and they would like to show up. Other people maybe won't. The great thing is, there's already done research for decades on this subject, mainly in America by Mr. Fishkin. And he found out that even the people who didn't want to go in the first place, who didn't want to, I don't like it, I don't want to talk to go, even if they still went, afterwards they did their job and they felt more positive about it afterwards. So during the process you can grow into it, and the more you use it, because I don't think you should do it only in Parliament, you should do it on a local basis, on a regional basis, on a European basis. During your lifetime you have a large chance of getting selected by a lot. So if you have it done more often, it becomes normal, it becomes the culture.
So this creates the political culture we miss at the moment. And
if
maybe it's a motivational
if
thing.
I can link this to the European level, I have one more worry. That is a good one, but I think that can be like how do you say, that can be solved in the end with like translators and these kind of things. I mean, that's a practical issue that can be resolved. A problem I would see is that, I mean, Europe is not equally divided among how many people live in the Netherlands, how many people live in Italy, how many people live in Germany, and already now a lot of people have the feeling that Germany is too powerful in Europe. If we would draw randomly by lot, there will probably be more Germans in these councils as well.
Then you possibly need something like a transnational order, like they don't decide for the member states, but they decide for the European idea. So as you said, there will be different levels, like a regional one, where also you could have like some cross-border aspects, for instance in Southern Europe, not Southern Europe, but Southern Germany, you have like Austria, Switzerland, so they will decide on regional matters. Then you have like the local matters that are more like national orientated, and you have like European matters that are more really on this transnational.
But if you, for example, yesterday we were at Texel and we talked with one guy, and he was a fisherman, and he was talking about the fact that some European states like Hungary, who don't even have a sea, were making decisions about fishing at sea. So I'm wondering then.
But they fish. Hungary has like also like one of the biggest lakes as our
fishing at sea
colleagues,
it was about, like specifically a law on sea fishing. So I am always wondering, with these kind of laws, is it not important to make sure that the people who decide on that are also the people that are affected by it in that sense? So I don't know, this is maybe a little bit me thinking about this further. Would it be possible to draw randomly from a certain group of people then in society? Because then you of course also get this problem, like who select, who to select.
Classifying, then it's not diverse anymore.
Exactly.
That's
so
the problem,
then if we talk about European matters, I'm a little bit thinking, like, what if something really is only about a certain area in Europe, or a certain problem in Europe that only affects people, like countries with the sea, or these kind of questions.
Well, maybe we should decide in a democratic way which topics should be decided on which level. Mm-hmm. So now it has grown into something that people start to dislike. I mean, we have the euro, we have the common currency, but the way it came about, well, it was a bit, you jump on the train, and Italy and Greece also got involved, and people in the north of Europe didn't really like it, so the people was not involved in that choice. So it grew the wrong way slowly, I think, and what do you do with that now? Maybe you should decide to take a step back and then again move forward in a democratic way. I'm not sure about it, because it's hard to do away with the euro. We have it now, and so how do you go? I'm not really sure. But whatever you decide to do, even the way you would use random selection, that should also be decided by everybody involved. So you also need sortition to get a good feeling of what power European Union should have about what. That would my.
It's like try and error. You try out what
also,
could work, and then you look how you include like the most like diverse group of people. Even though it's quite difficult, because you have like really specific areas such as fishing, which like probably, I don't know how many fishes there exist, probably like 3% of the European population, I'm just guessing. But it's difficult to get like all topics on board of one assembly. So you need like on different topics, on different levels. Yeah, it's possible, I guess.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering as well, a big difference, of course, if you choose people by random selection and how the system is working now, is that people who are drawn by selection actually do have a job. They do have, they work in a certain area, whereas people who are drawn, like who are working in politics, don't usually have a job on the side. In this sense, I am wondering how about interest, so to say, because people who work in, for example,
a politician.
Well, look at how it's going now. Lobbyists in Brussels. If you have a big company, you have money, you can buy time to talk with politicians. It's their only job, so this is their career. They want to move up the ladder in their career.
Opportunists.
Yeah, so they listen not to the people, they listen to the head of the party. What do I need to do to get ahead? And their interest is staying a politician to keep the job.
But everyone, I'd say, of course there are those kind of people, but I also think that there are people that are really connected with their people. They represent a certain region, a certain fear, and they want to bring it to the European Parliament.
And want to be re-elected.
Of course,
that's also
if
the
they
case.
do a good job, if they, elections also, like it's an approval, like by the people who vote you. They're like people, some politicians, they're in the European Parliament already for like 6 periods. It also has something to say, right? If you're because you also reconnect with this. Not always, of course. There might be some distance between the MEP and the people in the member state, but I think there's a reason why they get
re-elected.
Yeah.
Maybe they're good in marketing.
You think so?
Well, could be. Or a party is good in marketing. It's like a brand, a well-known brand.
Yeah.
You pick Coca-Cola. You don't pick something you don't know.
Of course. In the end, we're all consumers, and we pick what we like. Yeah. Also in politics,
but
it's
you're
like picking the right
yes
to follow.
But you pick an entire package, and the package, people don't like the package anymore. There's not a lot to choose from. But your worry was, if they have a job, they have a certain interest. That's what you said, right? It is true. But why would it be a problem? Because it's jobs like being a doctor, being a teacher, a nurse, a truck driver. What would be the problem by making decisions?
Well, I hope not only those people are being a part of the petition. I mean,
it's time, because they have professions already, and how should they split? Then you need some kind of regulation upon their time as partial politician. And
can you give an example of what would go wrong?
Yeah, like a doctor, he already works like 70 hours. He has a huge responsibility, and imagine he then gets drawn into this parliament, into this like citizens' assembly.
Yeah, assembly.
Like, how does he divide himself, like in terms of like a political figure and a working figure? Because then he's a divided subject that doesn't really. Yeah.
While he is in the assembly, he doesn't have time to be a doctor at that time. He is a doctor by profession. He will return to be a doctor afterwards. He thinks like a doctor, and that's exactly important because he brings knowledge to the other ones.
I agree with
and from his own life.
I just see a contradiction in his work politics balance,
Why? Could you give an example?
Well, I still don't see
what
it
could
like
go
a
wrong?
practice. I don't know. Maybe there's gonna be problems in the healthcare system because he's like one important doctor. Or I don't know.
Okay, good example. Could very well be. Or maybe he's a billionaire. He's very rich. He's drawn by a lot, and not many, but it could be the case. Yeah. And they have interest to keep taxes low, for instance. But it's only one of 100, or maybe 200 people drawn by a lot. He is alone. What can he do? What can he do on his own?
Yeah.
And you mentioned, I think, half an hour ago, something important. You talked about revolving power. Power should be revolving. I agree with it totally, because when you use statistician, you draw new groups all the time.
Yeah.
So power is then revolving, and the lobbyists don't have time to build up a relationship with the politicians. Exactly.
Yeah. You have it like in a lot of parties right now, that they also do this kind of system, revolving.
Really?
Like positions. It's more like
I didn't know about
progressive
it.
parties. For instance, okay, I'm talking about a movement I'm part of
Yeah?
DM25.
What is it? I never heard about it.
Pan-European movement that now is a transnational, like it's part of a transnational.
Are they on the ballot
list.
also by the common
Yeah.
elections?
Yeah.
M25.
Not DM25.
DM25.
Yeah,
What is the
not
DM
in
for?
It's a Democracy in Europe movement.
Okay.
And we also have always like a changing, like a circulating, positions in the whole movement.
Is it random or is it just circulating?
Well, we vote upon them. We vote upon but you have also other movements that do it. You know, like it's a new thing because they want that it's more like a balanced.
Okay, they still use voting, but you can't vote for the same people who were.
Exactly. Who were
Okay,
already
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I find it interesting because that's a major problem of political parties these days because they're really stuck in their status quo, you know. Also in the positioning there's like a hierarchy, and this hierarchy is not horizontal but like rather it goes like from down to to the top, and it's difficult to actually reach the top when you're like coming into this party.
DM25 it's called, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it a political party or movement?
At the moment, like it started as a movement and now we're part of the European Spring, which is like it's 7 parties.
European Spring?
Yeah.
I never heard. Interesting.
Okay, so it's basically like a program that is similar in 7 different countries, and we go into the elections as a transnational party, and it's one of the first transnational parties that actually go into like the election process in the European Parliament for the European Parliament.
What is their main? What is the main point? What is their main agenda?
Well, to democratize Europe.
Would they be pro-petition or not?
Possibly yes, because we're for
direct
democracy. We're in favor of direct democracy, so our we don't have like a specific agenda saying that we're against
elections.
Like no, elections of course are also an important means, but I think we see it more as supplement. It's also like me personally, I think that direct democracy should be supplement to like everything else we have to the parliament. You know, like we shouldn't like abolish the idea of a parliament because it's also like a really important organ and institution.
An elected parliament.
Yeah. So you could have like a balance of a lot of political institutions, also like the citizens' assembly, but it should all be like kind of in one balance.
To me, I never heard of DM25. That's one thing, and I know I'm going to vote. I'm not tearing up my ballot. That's not what I do. I still vote. I write on my voting ballot usually that I'm against elections. It's still legal because they still count to vote. But now I have a possibility to vote for a party that wants different democracy, and I didn't know that when I came here this morning. That's good news to me because now I have more options than I thought I had.
Unfortunately, they're not running in the Netherlands.
No.
Get the amount.
I'm disappointed again now.
But you can support us, of course, because we have like this European idea in mind. But there's also another party called Volt. I think they're running in the Netherlands, and you could support them because they're also like pan-European in nature. So they try to go from this national idea also, like of course they're national citizens and national identities, but they want to form like a European citizens, which brings me to another idea. How about like we form like reform or like rethink what a citizens is. It's always like connected to national identities rather than to something higher, you know. Like for instance, there's an interesting book by Bruno Latour, The Terrestrian Manifest, and he also tries to argue for like a political actor that of course has like the local idea in mind, but who has also like the world idea in mind. So it's like terrestrian because we're all part of Terra, the ground of the earth. So
do you agree?
Yeah.
Do you agree with him? And how should it be done in Europe or maybe the world? But let's start with the European Union. How would it work?
Well, I would say just get rid of like this political spectrum of left and right, and be more of an symbiosis between the citizens. Of course, there will be also antagonisms and so on, but what we now have is like purely ideology that kind of divides the society. You know, like in left and right thinkers. So we need something that is more like connected to the idea of like a common earth. And he is making a point because like in the European Union it already works because we have this European project that some might be critical about, but most of us we're really like connected to it. So
I'm not sure that most, when I was young, I think I liked the European Union a lot. I think it was a great organization. Right now, I'm not anymore thinking about it like that way. It should be a good organization, but it isn't a good organization anymore, any longer.
It's good that you're critical, like at least you see like the flaws, and then we can work on the areas that are not working, I would say. And as a city, we need to have this European consciousness, like also like this connectiveness. I
want to add to that, because we've been talking a lot about what should change and what should be different and what do we want to see. And I really like the discussion, not to.
Okay.
But I would like to ask, what do we think we as citizens can do now to actually participate more or to get our voices heard? What are things we can actually do now?
Okay. Well, I'm sitting here for one thing and talking about
Very well.
okay, but it's a good question, because you need some kind of a perspective of acting, of doing something. That's very important.
How can we start, actually?
Okay.
Like, what is there?
What I personally do, I'm not a teacher anymore, but when I was a teacher, I was a geography teacher. I talked with my pupils about subjects just like these, about Europe and about democracy.
So it's about educating people.
It's partly, but only a teacher can do that, of course, on a daily basis. I was even paid for it, so it was my job partially also. But I like doing it, and I always got good response. They thought it was very interesting. So you can really draw them into it. That you can do. With everybody I meet, I talk about sortition and elections and what we discussed over the past hour. Everybody I meet on the street, sometimes with strangers, wherever I go, family members, friends. Whenever I get the chance, I talk to people about it. What I also do, when there is an election, you get this voting paper. What's it called in German? Wahlzettel. Wahlzettel. I write on it against elections or vote against elections. And many people think, it becomes then unvalid. It's not a valid vote anymore. They don't count it because you write on it. No, it's not true. If you just tick one box, you can write whatever you want on your voting paper, unless it's your own name, because you're not allowed to trace to have your vote traced to a certain person. Then it becomes invalid. So you can write on your voting paper that you are against.
Like voting is kind of. There was a French philosopher who said "voter c'est abdiquer," who was also abdiquer. I don't know the abdicate. So, but he said there are other means. Like we shouldn't stop there, even like because he lost trust, in the authorities after the Napoleonic Wars and so on, and just coming back to.
The question was, what can we do right now?
Yeah, I know, but you were also talking about you write on the ballot paper.
Yeah, as abdicate. Okay.
Okay, that would be like an action that you take.
Yeah.
To criticize the system that we have at the moment. And
talk about it with many people as possible. I'm not sure what more I can do. Would you know what you can do? Vote maybe for DiEM25 or like in Holland we have a political party, a movement they call it. It's called Code Orange.
Okay.
And this is a new movement. And they say, like you, we're not against elections, but we want to add to it other democratic forms within the current system. So if possible.
It's complicated, especially because we are transnational in nature, and the parliament actually passed a law last year to forbid transnational lists in the parliament. So even to forbid transnational lists or transnational, I don't know, fractions.
You must be national.
Yeah, you must be national.
Really?
Yeah. Now we have a compromise because we have a collaboration between us, in Germany and other countries, 6 other countries. So
with the same name, everybody.
Well, it's different names, but with the same program.
Okay.
It's a European program, and you need to go this way. In order to tackle global problems, you need transnational answers. But you see it also with transnational movements all over the world, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's also pushing forward this Green New Deal idea. She's pushing forward a grassroots movement that could react to all these problems we are facing too. So we need possibly cooperation on a much higher level. Of course, it all starts local, but we need also to tackle those complexities which a reunification between the people and the nations. We can't just like stay in our bubble and accept.
Still, I have a worry here because, but we should also think about what we can do right now. That question remains on the agenda. I'm not quite sure what I can do more than I'm doing right now, and I also have the time and energy for it. That's also important. But I hear you talk about a lot of that we European citizens should unite more or less. That we are the same.
We're not. I know that we're not the same.
No, we're not the same, but we are one people more or less.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a way, yes.
In a way, yes, but also in a way, no. Look at even within countries. Scotland and England. Scotland wanted to be independent, which is quite incredible. I always thought they were happy to be in the United Kingdom. In Belgium, we have this, it's split movement of people wanting to split up the French-speaking and the Dutch-speaking. In Spain, we have this, what's it called again? Catalans, they want to separate. So even at a lower level, you see that people are not sure they want to remain in their countries. I feel partly European, yes. I don't feel American. I feel European. I feel more Dutch than European, I think, still. It's kind of hard to split it out. I'm also part of the western part of the Netherlands, so I'm also a Hollander. So, you have these identities that are layered somehow. And in the end, it comes down to, are people from rich countries willing to pay to people from poorer countries, maybe?
You always have cultural relativism that says that your culture counts, like your identity counts. And I'm not like completely out of mind saying, or like not utopist to say we need universalistic roots and so on, but at least we need a common path, especially in Europe. We need common goals that we can reach, for instance, social standards that count for everyone. We need basically like the right for work, because we have so much poverty and so much unemployment in many countries, like in the periphery, for instance. So we need to kind of have this consciousness about the people next to us, not only on a local level, but also when you look at nationalities, because we see always ourselves as superior, especially as Germans in the European Union. We try to create like a German Europe, but it should be the other way around. We need like a European Germany, and like we need a European Europe in a sense, like we need to spread the word. Like
for these common goals and policies, you need a lot of trust. I think people have to trust that system that feel like above their head. Yeah. That's the European system. If I'm just thinking about myself, I'm not sure if I would trust it. I'm not sure. I'm not saying no. Yeah. But like the way it is now, I don't trust it.
Yeah, because you don't know. That's the problem. We don't know as citizens. We don't know what is going on. But this is what we should ameliorate.
Do you think it's about knowing, or is it about power?
Well, of course we know that the power is there, because it's basically one city that has all the institutions in, like Brussels.
Yeah.
So
officially more, but
I think transparency could solve those problems if you have like live streaming of every meeting of those, like, because you have, for instance, the council meetings.
Okay, people are not going to watch it. They think it's boring.
Yeah, but still, then at least you have. There will be people that watch it, and then they will
journalists
analyze those information.
I read the newspaper once that as soon as there's news about the European Union on TV, people switch it to another channel.
So you need to make it more attractive. You need to show people what Europe does for you. For instance, there's one interesting project that was launched by the Commission, a really nice bicycle lane that goes from Southern Europe to Northern Europe. Like it connects basically like those two spheres.
Yeah.
So you need to show people what the European Union does actually, like how it works, and you need to make it more sexy. And through the sexiness, you can actually, bring the people back to this idea of Europe.
There's this one project, and I find it super interesting. They have this map, and you can zoom in on your own neighborhood or your own city, and then you can see per city or per neighborhood what Europe does for you. And I think it's also called "What Does Europe Do for You?" And in that way, you can bring it closer, so to say, to people. Like, okay, Europe seems to be so far away, but actually on the local level, it has so much influence on what we do and what we eat, for example. We're going to talk about it later. And in that sense, I think it's really important that people see, in that sense, how the European Union influences us.
But our own country doesn't have that. You don't have in Germany a map showing what does Germany do for the Germans.
There are some like state projects that some fail, like Berlin, you know, like the new airport that is constructed now for 7 years.
Yeah.
But I think it's how our world works, you know, try and error. I mean, you always have to try, you always have to show that you make an effort, that even like if you're so far away, you know, because this is the most, even I'm not the biggest groupie of the European Union because I see a lot of flaws, but at least I see like the possibility to construct something like more equal, like
okay.
And
I would think I like bicycling a lot. I'm Dutch. I like bicycling. I never knew there was a north-south or south-north bicycle lane. So it's fun to hear it. But it's like they have a discussion about the summer and the winter time. You know, the hour switch.
Yeah.
And
it was just like an example. I wouldn't like I didn't want to build my argument around it.
I want to stress is you then show the unimportant things, but the people want to decide about important things.
Well, this is important for economies, like on a large scale. Like actually, a lot of regions they profit from this bicycle lane because they're like a lot of tourists that pass by. So in a sense, like maybe it doesn't touch you, or maybe yes because you're a fanatic of the bicycle, but other people, like it's a whole process. Even though it's just like, okay, this is a bicycle. It was an example to show that there are projects that are supported and that have like.
But compared to what is at stake, people losing their job, immigration is a hot topic. Trade, internet, globalization. There's so many people. Look at the French yellow vest. You know, they're not on the streets because they think they're not enough bicycle lanes.
But then you need to invest into green infrastructure, for instance. You need to invest into projects that actually like create jobs, that make people again feel important. Also like migrants, you need to include them. You need to find like solutions for the problems we face. Of course, globalization is one, also like the climate catastrophe we're facing, and so on. So you need to have like common policies that all European can grasp, you know, like because they have an advantage in the social benefit, also like working benefit. So you need to create those incentives and those common frameworks for all the people, you know. So green infrastructure is just an idea that is possibly coming soonish. So.
Yes, still, when I think about, you have this map you can click on. What is Europe doing for you? You have the example of the bicycle lane. That's not gonna do it somehow.
Well, it does, right? Because like they actually worked on it like many years. There were people involved that constructed the lane. There are now people working on this route. You know, like they do like tourist stuff and they help. Yeah. They're part of this whole route. But
if you think about economic growth, that's important for a lot of people because then they have more jobs and more money.
Yeah.
That's at the heart of what people want. You know, they want a better life. How do you get economic growth, innovation, new technology, inventions? Then you have to invest money into it first. Research. You can bring together, as all the European states, a lot of money because the companies don't have money. But right now we cannot do it because we have to adhere to European laws. We can't lend more money because then the European Union Bank says no, you can't do it because 60% is the top you can borrow and not any much more. Even though your economy is running wild, you can't borrow more money because European Euro rules in Frankfurt, they say no, you can't do it. It's not allowed. So the European Union is actually stopping my country and the richer countries of investing because it's not allowed.
There are possibilities. There's a European Investment Bank that actually it hoards 3 trillion euros. So it could be used immediately in order to invest this money into European infrastructure projects.
Why is it not happening now?
Because there are interests on it. This is still money that is in government bonds, you know, like. But you could send them immediately. You could like make this incentive, like you could.
Why is it not done then? Why is it not happening?
Because you have like other industries that are prevailing over like this idea of creating infrastructures that are more green and more sustainable. For instance, the coal. There's a huge coal lobby still, and like a huge steel lobby.
So the problem is,
in my opinion,
the problem is that big companies have more power than the citizens.
Yeah,
that's the main problem.
Yeah, it's a plutocracy.
Okay.
In a sense.
And my point is that the whole thing of the information on the map and the bicycle lane as an example. Even if everybody would know about it, which is impossible. But even if that were the case, that still wouldn't solve the whole thing. What you just mentioned, the lobbyists of the big companies saying no, we don't want it to happen that way. It's not going to solve it.
No,
My worry is that the real solution will be the crisis. That's my biggest worry right now.
that a solution would be a crisis because it would bring a systemic change, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, it's also about systemic changes, but also about people realizing that institutions do something for them. Because the bicycle lane was maybe just an analogy to say, look out there are some people that care for you. Of course, it goes out in different dimensions, you know. It should be about social support, it should be about like economic support, it should be about creating like a political figure out of like that we need this homo politicus. So we need to go like into all the disciplines that surround us. We need to be aware and like more conscious about Europe, about like everything that it creates for us, because there's so much potential in it. There's so many like we're free, you know, like in this freedom we can create great things, I'd say. That's for me like one.
I would like to say I think we're having a really good discussion, but I want to round it up.
Okay.
If you want to stay longer, that's of course fine. Like
Okay, now I will be with her tomorrow as well. So
yeah, we will be tomorrow. We'll be in The Hague. So
Yeah.
if you can come, then
I already talked about with Anna.
awesome.
So if I'm not welcome, it's also fine. So it's going to be about the same topics, maybe. But
I think we're
a little
different
different topics,
yeah.
but I'll let you know
I
exactly.
would like to come, but if I'm
You're
not welcome,
100% welcome. 100%
I will
welcome.
be there at 3 o'clock. I think the meeting at 3 o'clock.
That's perfect. So I want to give everyone the opportunity to say one last thing, to give a little bit last input, like a last comment, and then round it up.
Okay, so we talked about citizens' participation. What I wish for the future is possibly like a more active citizen that takes a clear position on political, economic and social topics. But then we also, of course, need the connection, like we need to reconnect the citizen to like the political sphere, like in our local governments, in our regional governments, in our EU government. So yeah, we need a more active civil society, I would say, because from this one citizen something bigger grows, and we need to have like a strong community of citizens that take action.
Okay, I'm going to do some more advertising. I would like to. This is only the Dutch version of the book, the original Dutch version. No, I'm not getting a cent. I think I already gave away 20 books, exactly these copies of this book, to people I know and in the streets also. It's called Against Elections. It's translated, I think, now in more than 15 languages, even in Russian, in Arabic. It's in, of course, French. It's in German as well. Gegen Wahlen, contre les élections. Okay. And in Arabic they also have it. I would recommend everyone to get a copy of this book, read it, and it will make you positive about the future, also the future of Europe, I think. I think the solution is partly in this book. So that's my message to all the people.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay.
Thank you as well for joining the discussion. And yes, you're 100% welcome to every discussion you want to join. Oh, and one last thing. The project is organized by Democracy International. We're an NGO that's based in Germany. The project also costs us quite some money, so if you want to spend €1 for our project, then the thing's over there. Thank you very much.